We have our last question for today
So
for our stoites.
Still Billy's.
I think it's still
Oh,
Stowbillies. We wear that
so
with pride.
oh, geez. Gosh. Okay. Well, I'm not from there. I didn't say it.
I'm a reformed Hudsonite, so I'm
There
a
we go.
Stowbilly now.
So here's hey, listen, listen, as long as you're calling yourself that. Okay. Here's our last question. Why we get persecuted. So I'm thinking Christians. Why when Christians get persecuted for not agreeing with people being gay, it's okay if they're persecuted. But when it's reversed, since we don't believe in it, we get shamed and we're the villains. How
Hmm.
should we handle this?
Yeah.
Such an interesting, like, cultural kind
Yeah.
of situation that they're
Yeah.
bringing up, and might not be everyone's experience on either side. Neither side, this might not be everyone's experience, but it's the experience, of this person trying to figure that out. So,
Yeah.
Sean, what would you say to that?
And it's really fairness and justice oriented. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, if you're wrestling with this, it's some of that's probably the inner working of your heart, which is a good thing. God cares about justice and fairness. It is an interesting cultural thing that's happening. I've heard it called the intolerance of tolerance. One of our big cultural moving points is we want to be tolerant of everyone's belief. But if my belief is intolerant of your belief, then it's a problem, right? If my belief disagrees with an overall cultural belief, then no one's going to be tolerant of me. Right. And so it is frustrating. I totally get this question of like, wait, what do you mean? I've got to be tolerant of everyone else, but they can't be tolerant of my differing opinion. And to be fair, why you might feel that way is it is logically inconsistent, right? Like that, the belief of tolerance where we're not willing to be tolerant to everyone it's logically inconsistent. And so that's why it's frustrating. But what I'd encourage you in this is what it means to be a follower of Jesus is to, in our words and deeds, love people because God's like called us to love our neighbor as ourselves. So we're going to live out that love, live like caring for them. And part of that means actually saying the truth to them, right? It's not just doing actions and caring for them. Like if we're going to love God and love others, it means also at times telling them the truth when they disagree with it, which means you're going to experience this kind of whether it's persecution or you're going to tell people things sometimes they don't want to hear or that might be unpopular at times. But what I want to encourage you in is we're just following Jesus's example in that. And what you can do is, all right, I've been rejected. I don't want to do that as a jerk. I want to do it kindly, right? I'm trying to care for people. But when Jesus did that, he was still rejected and he told us to turn the other cheek. And a lot of what Jesus says in the Gospels is a servant isn't better than his master. So if Jesus is our master and he was rejected and beaten and betrayed, then we, as his followers, will probably experience that as we live for him at times. So that's a hard thing, right? You're signing up for that in some capacity. And that might not be fair, but part of what Jesus has called us to do to love people is be willing to tell them the truth in a loving way, in a way, even if they don't want to hear it. Part of what's helpful for me in this is I want to view this question in light of what is the mission that Jesus has given me. Because we can so get caught up in, man, my mission is to make people believe the right thing about morality or ethics or this certain issue, right? My goal is I've got to fight for what God's word says about sexuality or pro-life or marriage or whatever these things are that maybe our culture disagrees with what the scriptures say. And those are all good things. The Bible holds to them, but Jesus hasn't given me a mission to help non-Christians act Christian. He's given me the mission to tell people about him. Sometimes we just get so much caught up on this of we expect unbelievers to act like they have a relationship with Jesus. And that's silliness. Of course, they're not going to believe what I believe about sexuality or any of these other topics. And so if I can encourage you in anything as a student, as you engage with your friends, don't expect people who aren't followers of Jesus, who haven't been brought from death to life, to act like they have a relationship with Jesus and do what he's called them to do. And so that actually takes pressure off you. You don't need to win that argument. You need to say what's true and be willing to deal with the consequences of that. But your mission's a lot more simple. My mission is to tell people about Jesus, his death and resurrection, that he loves them, he's died for them, and he's made a way for them to know him and experience new life. And God will, if they put their faith in him, take care of their beliefs on everything else. And so just focus in. How do I show people Jesus, love people like Jesus, and tell them about what Jesus has done for them?
Yeah, so good. And, like you said, when people disagree with us, we don't write them off. We don't
Yeah.
say like, "Okay, so that gives me permission. You were mean to me, so I get to be mean to you." That is anti the way of Jesus,
Yeah.
He says to love our enemies. And
Yeah.
so this person's probably not your enemy, but even we can dial it back and the people that annoy you, that discredit you, that whatever, he says to love.
Mhm.
And I think like what you're saying, Sean, and then show them who the real Jesus is,
Yeah. Yeah.
even in those actions then and how you respond. And
Yeah.
so I
Huge. That's great.
so good.
For those of you that might be listening that are readers, a book that's really good to dive into this subject is called How to Tell the Truth by Preston Perry. It really it's neat take of like him sharing his own story and his own
Mhm,
successes and failures of talking to people about what he believes and even being in like debates and conversations where people disagree with him and how
mhm.
to be in a posture of love in the midst of that.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you. Thanks for recommending that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Preston Ferry is a awesome resource for that stuff.